I founded Stratfor in 1996, and what it really is an intelligence organization. That's hard to believe in the private sector, but that's what it is. We have people in the field, we have analysts analyzing, writers writing, and our goal is to understand for the public what is really going on out there and try to make sense of it. When you think about the two or three things that are happening right now, I think the most important one is the power of the United States. It's simply surging. It's hard to believe given the news and the numbers and stuff like that, but it really is. China is weakening dramatically. China is an extremely poor country, and right now it actually costs more to hire a worker in China than it does in Mexico. This is really hurting them. Perhaps the most immediate thing that should worry us, of course, is Iran. The United States is pulling out of Iraq, and Iran is going to be the dominant power in the Persian Gulf. This is changing the whole global balance, and it's taking an enemy of the United States and putting it in a very powerful position. This will work out, but how it works out and how complex and dangerous it becomes, never forget that 40% of the oil exported in the world comes out of the Persian Gulf and through the Straits of Hormuz, and Iran is sitting right there. In thinking about why the experts have a different view on China than we have, it really comes down to what you're looking at in China. If you're looking at that area, that small area, less than 5% of China's population, where you've had a massive boom over the past 30 years, you can get the impression that China is in terrific shape. If you look at the whole of China, the other 95%, where 600 million people earn less than $3 a day in a household, they live on that, where another 440 million live on an income of $3 to $6 a day, you start to realize that China has a basic poverty level of sub-Saharan Africa, and that 5% that we're all focused on, where Western businesses make money, is really sitting on a volcano, and that volcano is erupting, which is why the Chinese are as oppressive as they are to their own public. They're afraid of them. Among the finest places to invest is Dayton, Ohio. And I say Dayton, Ohio because it's here in the United States. But there are some emerging countries you also have to look at. Turkey is one of them. Turkey grew last year by 8.9%. Turkey grew throughout the entire last 10 years, making it the world's 16th largest economy and the largest Islamic economy, larger than Saudi Arabia. Another country we think very highly of is Poland. Poland is a country that is surging economically, that is dynamic, and has a very close relationship with the United States, which is pretty helpful. We also think China is no longer the place in Asia to go, but Japan is. Japan is going through very bad 20 years, and the recent earthquakes, tsunamis, and nuclear meltdowns certainly didn't help them, but it's shaken them up dramatically, so that we are looking at an emerging new spirit in Japan. And we have to remember, Japan is as wealthy as China is without 1 billion impoverished people hanging on to it. Well, we have to begin by understanding that not a single regime has changed in the Middle East. Certainly Hosni Mubarak was replaced by a military junta, but that's just a personnel change, not a regime change. In North Africa, you have unrest. Certainly in Libya, you have a war. But you don't have a democratic rising. That was a myth of the Western newspapers. It's in the Persian Gulf that the most dangerous thing is happening, because what is going on there is not a democratic rising so much as in some countries like Bahrain, a majority Shiite population rising up against a Saudi-supported government backed by Iran. The danger in the Persian Gulf is not a democratic revolution, but rather a destabilization of the world's oil reserves. And if that were to happen, the world would change pretty dramatically for a while. Ever since 1979, people in the United States have fantasized about an uprising in Iran against the government. When there has been any unrest, the government has put it down very easily, for a very simple reason. In the end, the government is popular. Now, there is, of course, a political fight in Iran, as there is in the United States or Australia or anywhere else. And the struggle is between The old Ayatollahs who've made a great deal of money, the Ayatollah Rafsanjani is an extraordinarily wealthy man and corrupt. And a young group of non-clerical leaders who are challenging them for authority because of their corruption, and leading this group is President Ahmadinejad. So there is a struggle between a generation that brought Khomeini to power and the young people who took the U.S. Embassy over the future of the country. But Ahmadinejad won that election, and Ahmadinejad has tremendous influence, and Khomeini's influence is declining. So let's not put our hopes in Iran on instability. They're going to be able to handle it. The U.S. can live with a lot of different patterns in Latin America. Because there is no foreign power, no Nazi Germany, no Soviet Union to capitalize on what happens, you can have leftist regimes, you can have rightist regimes. It's not going to amount to much. The most important thing that's happened in Latin America is Brazil. I mean, Brazil has become one of the world's major economic powers. And for the first time in a very long time, a Latin American power is a global player. And that's going to change things, and especially with the rise of food prices. Countries like Argentina, which are great food producers, are going to be doing extremely well. So my view on Latin America is pretty positive, with a lot of bumps in the road. Well, the first thing we should learn from Canada is to have a lot of natural gas reserves. And if we could learn to do that, we'd be fine. I mean, when you trace back Canada's success, it wasn't trivial what they did with stabilizing their banking system, their social policies, getting over the Quebecois issue. But in the end, the single thing that did it was the price of energy. A tremendous access to natural gas, including new technologies for accessing it, and companies building pipelines all over the world. So when you take a look at all these things, you have to say that Canada is a lucky country. The two major problems we're facing is declining population and an aging population. Those industries that deal with this are the ones that are going to make it, and the two that I would pick would be pharmaceuticals that deal with debilitating diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, because the problem of old age is not old age, it's the inability to function in old age. That's what's driving Medicare costs. And the second industry that I think is the most important is industries that replace labor. And that's robotics. I'd like to imagine, you know, a machine with a head and arms and stuff like that, but that's not what I mean. I mean the creation of a new class of machine that's primarily designed to replace human labor, because we're going to need them. That's going to come, and that is going to be the revolutionary industries of the next century, really. That, along with inexpensive energy, which we have to find, because we can't keep paying the price of BTUs and hydrocarbons.